I think we can all agree that no one likes to fail. We do everything in our power to avoid it or to prevent it from happening. But the truth is, failure is part of the process. It's something that happens to all of us whether we like it or not. One thing I learned over the years is that the most important thing after failing at something is to analyze why you failed, so you can learn the lessons and apply them to your future efforts. In this video, I want to share with you 3 frameworks you can use every time you experience failure. The first framework is borrowed from the world of startups and entrepreneurship. It's called the 5 Whys analysis. The idea here is simple. You ask yourself 5 times why a certain thing happened, and each time you get an answer. You ask yourself why again until you get to the root cause. Let me illustrate this with an example. Imagine that for 4 consecutive weeks you were supposed to finish a big project by Friday, but you didn't. So, you sat down on Monday morning to start working on it and asked yourself, why did you fail to finish it last week? Perhaps your answer was, I procrastinated. Then you should ask yourself, why did you procrastinate? Maybe you were overwhelmed by the size of the project. Okay, why were you overwhelmed? Because you didn't break it down into smaller tasks. Why didn't you do that? Because you thought it wasn't necessary. And then you can go back and reflect on that assumption. Was it really so? Could breaking the project into smaller tasks have made things easier? By going through this exercise, you might have realized that your biggest problem was that you weren't clear on how to proceed. And in the future, when you find yourself in a similar situation where you have a big project to work on, you can remind yourself to spend some extra time clarifying the steps involved so you don't have to deal with the same issue again. This is how you turn failure into a lesson and eventually into a strength. So now let's take a look at another framework you can use. This one is called the sailboat framework. Let's say that you are studying for an exam and you failed to grasp some concepts despite having studied them multiple times. You could use the sailboat framework to analyze what went wrong. So, you start by asking, what was the goal? Your goal was to understand the concepts, right? Did you achieve that? No, you didn't? What stands between you and your goal? Your lack of understanding. Okay, why is that? Perhaps because you weren't active enough while studying. You were just reading and highlighting your notes without actively trying to understand and internalize the information. If that's the case, how could you change that? Next time you study, make sure to use active recall techniques like doing practice problems, summarizing concepts in your own words, or teaching the material to someone else. So, you can see how the sailboat framework guides you towards figuring out what you need to change next time. It helps you break down the problem and focus on the key areas that you need to work on. Now I want to talk about my personal favorite framework, which I call the 3 C's framework. First off, what does the word failure itself mean? It means you haven't been successful this time around. That's it. It doesn't define who you are or what you're capable of. One quote I always keep in mind when I fail is the one by author Brad Stulberg, who says failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently. So, what are those 3 C's? The first C stands for commiserate. When you fail, give yourself some time to be sad about it, to feel disappointed. Allow yourself to have that emotional reaction because suppressing it won't help you move forward. Also, don't feed the negative thoughts. Avoid saying to yourself things like, I'm such a loser, or I always screw up. These thoughts are counterproductive because they create a negative self-image. Instead, try to be compassionate with yourself. Tell yourself it's okay. Everyone fails sometimes. You are not defined by this failure. The second C stands for correct. After giving yourself permission to wallow in your failure for a bit, it's time to put things into perspective. Ask yourself, is this failure really as bad as I think it is? Will it have any long-term negative consequences? If the answer is no, then this failure is just a minor setback. It's not the end of the world. Try to normalize failure and realize that it's part of the process. Sometimes we fail because we're learning something new and we haven't mastered it yet. So, instead of focusing on the negative, focus on the positive aspects of the experience. What did you learn? How can you use this knowledge to improve yourself? What would you do differently next time? The third C stands for commit. Now that you've allowed yourself to feel the disappointment and put things in perspective, it's time to commit to making a change. Think about what you would do differently next time and write down actionable steps you can take to increase your chances of success. For instance, if you failed to reach your fitness goals, what will you do differently next time? Will you start working out at home instead of going to the gym because you found it too inconvenient? Will you try to find a workout buddy for extra support and motivation? Or will you start cooking healthier meals? Whatever it is, write down actionable steps you can take and commit to doing them. Whenever you experience failure, I want you to remember three things. First, it's important to allow yourself to feel the emotions that come with failure: sadness, disappointment, frustration. Suppressing these emotions will only prevent you from moving on. Second, put things in perspective. Is this really as bad as you think it is? Will it have any long-term negative consequences? Most likely the answer is no. Failure is a normal part of life. It's not the end of the world. And finally, commit to doing something differently next time. Think about what you would do differently if you had a chance and write down actionable steps you can take to increase your chances of success. And now I want to hear from you. What are some other ways to deal with failure? What are some lessons you've learned from your failures? Leave a comment below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps me out. And don't forget to subscribe for more content. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.